Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. This is the daily medicine transmission for March 24th, 2021. And we're on time today. Oh my gosh. The lighting is not great. It is, it's a rainy spring day here in rural Pennsylvania. So it's very overcast and I'm kind of forced to use my artificial light to light the scenery. Usually I have this window that's right in front of me with the morning light from the east coming in, and it naturally lights my office. And so, but don't worry, I know it may be a little distracting perhaps, but you won't be looking at my face very much through all of this, because we're going to look at the astrology chart. We're going to look at the intuitive reading, just like we do every day with the daily medicine transmission. And we are going to talk about Dharma. Our moon is in Leo today as well, all day. Won't be moving into Virgo until tomorrow, very late in the evening. So we have a lot of aspects with the moon in Leo. Of course, it's going to be trining anything in Aries, which it did last night with Venus, very end of the evening into today. Technically in terms of the clock, right? Midnight Eastern Standard Time. So last night or very early morning. And so making trines to what's in Aries right now. Well, it's the sun, it's Chiron. Ooh, these are important. These are very important with the full moon coming up. I can't stress enough how important this full moon is. I feel like I say that every month, but maybe it's just because the work that we are doing right now on a spiritual level, on an energetic level is so important that every full moon has now have so much weight to it. But because Venus and the sun and Chiron will all be in a conjunction at the full moon, it's very heavy and weighted and is going to trigger all kinds of stuff that is going to pull us off our focus. And this full moon is going to show us within each of us how we can apply everything we've learned so far, especially over this lunar cycle thus far, what we have learned so far and how we can apply that to a sense of balance and peace of mind and justice and fairness. A full moon in Libra. Especially when it comes to our relationships, but really just any committed situation. Libra is the 7th house, and that is, mundane astrology. You're talking about marriage, but it's really anything. Anybody who is in a business relationship or in a marriage will tell you that they are interchangeable. A marriage is like a business relationship, and a business relationship is like a marriage. And one piece of advice I got from my former business partner when we were going into business together, she's not former because anything happened. It's just the business that we had planned just didn't go through. But one thing that was given to me from this person is never go into business with somebody that you also wouldn't marry. And when we think about marriage, this is kind of a tangent here, but when we think about marriage, the idea of romantic love is really more of a 5th house thing. And marriage as a 7th house is about contracts and commitment. And, actually this is a great segue because we are going to talk about Asteroid Juno today. She is in Sagittarius. She is at the point of the total solar eclipse that happened in December. Remember, we are still in this eclipse cycle, May to June. This is really important. This is a time frame that we have to pay attention to, May into June, when the next eclipse cycle starts. So we are still in that eclipse cycle from the December, right? That new moon, that total solar eclipse in Sagittarius. And I will actually link that at the end of this video because that I think that going back and maybe familiarizing ourselves with what was going on at that time and the specific aspects, the fixed stars, the fact that it was in a conjunction to a star in the constellation Ophiuchus, which is the snake charmer. There's a lot there that we have to go back to. And the fact that Juno is the wife of Zeus. Or Hera, right? She is the queen. Just as much as Zeus is the king or the leader, she is the queen. And she represents astrologically and archetypally our commitments to each other, and all that goes along with that. Betrayal, right? That's a very eighth house thing, isn't it? But you don't get betrayal of trust or betrayal of contract without starting a contract to begin with. So Juno represents not only that commitment in a relationship, but also all of the things that come out of that. So the betrayal, the fact, the contracts that we make and the weight that they hold. And she is at the degree of this the solar eclipse, the total solar eclipse that happened in December. The path of totality was through South America, Chile, and Argentina specifically. I talked a lot about that too, because of the fact that they had some issues in the late 19th century. Once the colonialists left, they had to establish their border, and this seemed like something that was really really pertinent. So I'm going to link that at the end of this video if you want to go back and revisit some of that stuff, because it's going to be important, and I would like to go revisit that too. But it's, as we see in the intuitive reading, this idea of commitment. What are we committed to? Who are we committed to? What causes? What kind of contracts have we made with, Jupiter is the advocate, the manager. The Jupiter is the lawyer, right? It's the professor. It is somebody who is in a position of power and authority that represents our collective values. That's why there's expansion, and it's about the big picture and the truth of everything, and the defender of that truth, the advocate for that truth is, the ninth house and Jupiter. This represents, it's certainly benefic and good fortune, but that's because there is some aspect, some characterization that's there that represents and advocates for these collective values, the truth, the belief systems that Sagittarius ultimately represents. So Juno, in the sign of the home sign of the archetypal husband, right? Her counterpart. She is standing for something and reminding us about our commitment to that process. And 24 degrees Sagittarius, we're getting very close to the galactic center. And we're also, if we think about it from the Sabian symbol perspective, this is a bluebird perched on the gate of a cottage. It's like we're coming home. There is, this is going to feed in so beautifully to the reading today too, the imagery. We're coming home. There is celebration and a sense of coming together that is waiting for us, but it is waiting for those who stick with their commitments, right? That you have to fulfill all of the aspects that go along with the Sagittarius archetype, because you have to fulfill the alchemy, right? You have to coagulate, put these two polar opposites together in order to create the new thing. Wow, it's so beautiful today how much all of this is aligning. Now, yesterday, I want to point out about yesterday, because the reading was very much about being insular and insulated to a certain extent, knowing where you belong, feeling at home where you belong, and love being the very centerpiece, And there was a lot of tragedy that came out in the news yesterday. There was a mass shooting in Colorado, and I felt like it was important to acknowledge that, considering how feminine and beautiful and love-oriented yesterday's reading was, how satisfied the aspect of the outcome was meant to be, how we were drawn towards our collective attention and conscious awareness on being rooted and grounded, but also knowing that is part of our power and our foundation to grow. And it's not to minimize in any way what had occurred, because it's a big deal and it ripples through the collective when these types of things happen. And there's, it's really worth the time, I think, to really deeply consider all of the aspects that are being brought to the surface and not thinking about it so cut and dry, but also to realize that, again, sometimes that Two of Cups, there needs to be a differentiation and almost a fracture. And remember, Venus is very sensitive, very sensitive. And so when it comes to matters of emotions and tenderness in the heart, there needs to be a separation in order to feel that unification. And sometimes those types of situations come about in a way that is very painful, and really it really impacts our sense of humanity, and it impacts our sense of safety and our sensitivity to worth and value as well. And so I felt like it was important to address that, because there's so much abundance within us, and the potential for it is very strong right now. And these types of situations are a really good example of how we can get pulled out of our concentrated attention on the big picture of what we're all trying to, and not even trying, we've agreed on some level here that we are going to move into this next phase. And how that happens is really up to us. And I posted about that on my social media platforms in reference to something specific. But it's important to realize that there will continue to be these instances that will serve as practice points to stay focused on, eyes on the prize, whatever that is for you. And so today's message is about Dharma, and Dharma is really cosmic law. And specifically, when we find our own Dharma, it's not about what we do or necessarily what we do, but who we are. And when we know who we are, then we fulfill our Dharma just as effortlessly as every element expresses itself. And sometimes it will take some time to really get to know yourself and who you are and who you're not. Because the ego definitely gets in the way when we're trying to fulfill these roles, when we try to figure out who we are. Like recently I had a friend that I gave a little mini reading to, because she's like, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? And I think that a lot of people are really wondering that and looking for activation. And we all have our very unique signature to play. And the moon in Leo today and tomorrow is the time where we embody that emotionally. We feel that. We want to be the center of our own stage right now. And if we know who we are, especially with all this Aries energy, right? That is the ego consciousness. That is the subjective experience of I am. When this is all worked with consciously and intentionally and with guidance as we move through the zodiac, then when you get to Leo and the 5th house and you are taking social risks, you are expressing your creativity, you are allowing your passion to move through you as a divine channel, then wow, there's nothing that we can't do, and we each are a unique expression. And that's why Leo, as the opposition to Aquarius, is so important that they are both expressed at their highest, because otherwise when people are not in the full expression and the uniqueness of who they are and really clear about their Dharma, if they are not, then that Aquarian archetype just becomes much more about collectivism and the erasing individuality. So we get to really each individually with this moon transit in Leo kind of connect all this. And boy, there are a lot of transits today and a mystic rectangle. So lovely. Just so many good segues today. So let's just get right into it. I'm going to minimize myself here, and we are going to look at the chart for today. So we are, like I said, the moon is in Leo today. Let's look at this. And so there's a couple things to keep in mind. So we see that there's going to be an opposition to Saturn in Aquarius today. We're going to talk very specifically about this because there is a mystic rectangle. You don't see it on this chart, but I'm going to move to a different chart and show you that a mystic rectangle. And we will talk about that because that mystic rectangle today is going to be a big part of easing the opposition, because of course the moon's nodes are always in opposition to each other no matter what, but look how close Mars is getting to the north node. And Mars in Gemini has been fascinating, right? Because Mars is, the action hero, the warrior. It's enterprising and confident and courageous and moving forward, cardinal air. the leader of where Venus and the Sun and Chiron are currently at. But in mutable Gemini, I mean, distractions are abound, and distractions in a way that we can easily just go, oh, I want to go here. Oh, I want to go here. Oh, I want to go here, right? Because Gemini is about discovery. So if we can really rein in, if we've been able to really rein in that Mars in Gemini, we can be like a very enterprising explorer, right? You can think of famous explorers that it took a lot of courage and confidence and a sense of adventure to really go into the unknown and explore and be curious. So, I mean, Mars wants a direction, that's for sure. And mutable air can make it very easy to, for somebody to, or somebody, some entity, some organization, whatever, can easily pull our focus and our will to actualize ourselves somewhere that's not, again, it's about that concentrated attention that Chiron has been sitting on now for a little while, this 8 to 9 degrees of Aries, the person looking into the crystal ball, right? We have to be able, we're seeing a big picture, not the details, but we have to be able to concentrate on this big picture that we see if we want to be able to manifest it. And Mars can be a huge, it can be a very powerful, a powerful force in this process. And as it gets closer to the North Node and in its opposition to the South Node in Sagittarius, wow, we are going to, this is very fascinating. It's going to be this really, really strong, really brilliant, very honed in, I would say, because that's the thing. It's just like if we can get that attention, boy, we can move with that North Node. And the North Node is the head of the dragon, isn't it? The moon's North Node is the head of, every planet has 2 nodes. But the moon's North Node has to do with each of us individually and our karma, right? Our soul's evolution with the moon's nodes, because it has to do with each of us individually and where we are headed in our soul's progression in this lifetime. So the moon is going to be was in a trine to Venus, as I said, is in a trine to the sun today, as well, and also in a trine to Chiron. So it's almost setting the stage here a little bit for, where drawing some attention to these aspects today, because when the full moon comes on the 28th, then the moon will be in Libra. And so we are definitely feeling a sense of who we are and wanting to express that self. And, there's a need to involve our vital energies in the creative act, right? If you want to produce new form, right? You have to involve your spiritual and vital energies, right? You have to really tap in and release the Kundalini, for instance, in a creative act, whatever that creative act is. That 5th house is about creative expression and passion and romance and dating, for instance. And like I said, taking social risks, playing, right? It's very much about children in Leo too. So one thing I will say though is that, let me backtrack real quick. So with these trines to Aries, which is about the self-actualization, the impulse to be an individual, we are learning now as we come into into the spring, for instance. You can see all of the plants and the trees are starting to grow their little buds. The seeds have become viable, ready to be planted. So we're going to have a strong connection here in terms of each of our individual experience, wanting to be ourselves, wanting to shine forward from what we are starting to actualize within our individual subjective experience. So this trine here, these trines are really nice. But what I will say, if you can see here, is there's a square with Uranus at the same degree. Chiron and Uranus have been doing this little, semi-sextile here. So they're connected in a very subtle way right now. And that's something to keep in mind. But there also, while the moon is in a trine to Chiron, is going to square Uranus, okay? So when we have this square, even though we are shaping a beautiful new form, using our controlled spiritual energies, it's like a glass blower, right? If you want to create something, if you've ever watched people blow glass, I mean, I've been to the Murano glass factory in Venice, and they do a tour and they do a whole demonstration, and it's this really massive thing. Huge kilns, if that's what, ovens, and they make these beautiful forms. And I've been around other people who are, blowing glass. And so you have to control the fire, you have to control the heat, you have to control yourself as you're moving it, turning it in the flame. So you have to involve all of these energies, and they have to be controlled. So, but it's meant to create something beautiful. Now, squaring Uranus, of course, Uranus is just going to be like, well, that's great, but I'm going to, blow out, the furnace is going to break, or I'm going to, break all of your raw materials. They're all going to be broken, so you can't blow any glass. Or every time you try to do it, something goes wrong in a material sense that is going to challenge this need to involve our vital energies in this creative act. So again, there's no resolving squares. You just have to lean into it. So just keep in mind that Uranus, as the planet of awakening and radical transformation in the material realm of Taurus, is going to keep, disrupting things and breaking things while we are trying to make this beautiful thing, okay? But where is Uranus? It's in this position right now in Taurus that is almost forcing us into having faith in the natural cycles, okay? And so as much as we want to infuse our vital energy, Leo, into this process, the square Uranus is going to be like, well, that's great, but I am making big changes on the material level that is going to frustrate you while you're trying to do this thing. Okay. And then we have a moon opposite Saturn, which I'm going to talk about with the mystic rectangle when I show it to you. But then it's going to come along and sextile Mars. It's going to sextile the North Node, which means it's going to trine the South Node today. And this is going to, if we can quiet our mind and enough to recall recall what we've been through, the crises, the joys, right? As we move from combustion into release, that is the first half of Leo is combustion, the second half is release. If we can be like, kind of separating ourselves from and recalling what we've already been through, this is going to really support where Mars is in Gemini, which is really, bringing us to a point of virtuosity, right? We each have a role to play, and we each have a particular unique signature that is about our virtuosity. And when we fulfill that, then we become an inspiration for other people. And with Mars there, we really are feeling it, right? We want to act on it. And if we can stay focused, we have a lot of energy behind that virtuosity and that performance specifically. And it will require that we, if we want to make the most of that, I would say that we would be well advised to take a step back and quiet our mind a little bit, which is really hard with Leo, but quiet our mind and recall the things that we've already done so that we can infuse that into this expression of our unique virtuosity and be a source of inspiration. It's also in a quincunx to Mercury at the same time that is in a sextile. That means, we know that, Mercury and Mars we're in a square already. And so the quincunx here, you can see this green line, the quincunx where things don't fit at all. It's like a square peg in a round hole. So Mercury is representing something that is much older than all of us that we can refer back to, right? It can be the mind is engaging with something that is much older and is something that has been presented and held like in a museum, right? Held in a museum in perpetuity, so we can see and follow in those footsteps with our mind through a collective sense. This is where the quincunx comes in, because the moon in Leo is all about our own process. And so while we're going through that our own process, even if we are quieting our mind, recalling where we've been, how we've suffered, the joys that we've had, it's not really fitting in with the collective mind right now that is showing us a symbol of courage for something, the energy of the whole, right? Leo is a real struggle with this because it is the center of our soul. Our sun is the center of everything. And so Leo, as being related to the sun, is at the center of everything for us. And so with Mercury, and this is much more of a collective mind right now, and seeing the past, and seeing seeing something that is a representation of God's will, and God's will operating through us as well. And again, this mystic rectangle today is going to really help make sense of this. And like I said, the sextile and trine to the north and south node. So let's look at that. Actually, I want you to see what this looks like. So let's move forward a little bit today so that we can see here when it's more obvious. So let's see. I don't know if it will be, but you can see it right here. Hold on. Let me make sure, number one, that this is where I need it to be. Okay, it is. All right, so you can see right here the rectangle, right? You have Saturn, you have the south node, you have the moon, you have the north node and Mars back to Saturn. And then you have the two oppositions, which is the moon in Leo to the Saturn in Aquarius, and then the nodes with Mars involved. Okay, so this mystic rectangle has two oppositions, right? Two oppositions, two sets of energies that are pulling on each other and creating tension. So we find our fulcrum so that we can get them, you're just not pulling to one side or the other. We find a balance point. So there's still going to be tension, but if we're at the right place along this line and putting if we are focusing our balance at the right place in this line of tension, it will allow for, and it's going to be different for everybody. That's the thing. Depending on where you are, you will need to put more energy towards the moon or maybe towards Saturn, and it all depends on how things are impacting your chart. The thing is, and there's always an opposition with the nodes, and then you have Mars here. So the Mars is pulling a lot more towards this north node, which, the north node is where we are headed collectively, or our soul in the individual chart. It's the soul's karma, where the soul is pulling us to evolve. And so it can be a little obsessive. We can be obsessive about it because it's the head of the dragon. The dragon's got this trajectory and it's moving towards it. And if you have Mars involved, then it's really like the fire and the confidence and the enterprising towards that is very, very strong. So you have these two oppositions. Well, the rectangle is sextiles and trines, and so they allow for the easing of the tension, and more accurately, the rectangle, the outer portions of the rectangle of these sextiles and trines gives us an indication of where to put our energy to find some balance in these oppositions. Number one, so we have the moon in an opposition to Saturn in Aquarius. I mean, it's been relentless with Saturn in Aquarius, which has been about the seclusion, right? Going into seclusion to find inspiration. And Saturn is a boundary that you can't get around. It is the wall of time and karma. It is the ruler of Capricorn, which is the physical material matrix of the reality we live in. We can move out of that in non-physical form, perhaps, but it also is really hard to do that. And this has been forcing us to a certain extent to really, if we have seen it for what it is, to start stripping away all of the noise, right? And getting into our own guidance system, and to let the chatter of everything else settle and settle and settle, so that we can find true connection to our higher self and source and be inspired through that. And for the more that we push back against this, the harder it's going to come back to us. And I think that many people have already been experiencing this if they haven't actually been allowing themselves to just kind of take, I don't want to say, how do I say this? I don't want to say take the punishment. It's not a punishment. It's a boundary, right? It's a boundary. This is where you have to, this is the boundary you can't go beyond. You're not going to get the real inspiration until you find a silent moment here. And that means letting go of everybody else's chatter, right? So we have the moon in opposition to this point as part of this mystic rectangle. And so in Leo, we are beginning individual self-expression, right? That second decan of Leo, specifically 11 degrees Leo, is like playing on a swing, a huge oak tree, right? There's our Saturn, is this huge oak tree that is the power of tradition, and it shelters us and holds the swing as our consciousness moves on this swing in Leo, in the beginnings of individual self-expression. We want to swing around. We're going to feel this urge to play, and trust that we are hanging on, that this tree is going to hold this branch, right? And in this opposition to Saturn, that is just like, well, I am going to how do I say this? The big oak tree to us is the tradition, is Saturn, right? But at the same time, we have to, it's really pulling on our wanting to play and swing around on this oak tree. It's saying, no, you have to come inside and sit down and do your meditation, because swinging around is not really helping you right now. It's playful. And it's not to say we shouldn't do that. Remember, the moon is going to move on from this point fairly quickly. And so there'll be this moment, where we're going to feel that tension. And of course, we're going to feel the tension with the nodes. We always do. That's just a constant. And like I said, with Mars right here, it's really pulling us towards this virtuosity, really pulling us towards this curiosity, this exploration, and the ability to really communicate with each other in a way that not even with each other, but even within our own consciousness, being able to move back and forth seamlessly between the polarities of these ideas, right? The thesis and the antithesis. If we are able to move seamlessly from one through the other, then we are really able to discover some things. And Mars is really just on the quest now and is going to infuse us. So we don't want to necessarily be swinging wildly. You know what I mean? It feels, it's fun, and it will move on, but at the same time, Saturn is a real patriarch right now. And it's just like, no, we have to be in this silent hour. Not to say we are passive. It's not like that. It's much more about letting go of all the external noise and being able to take in true guidance from our higher self. So, of course, Saturn is in a trine, right? Saturn's in a trine to Mars and the North Node. That just happened. So that's really supporting moving forward, discovering, and being able to, within the realm of the mind, right? Not so much the realm of the spark of fire. Oh boy, I can't wait to show you the reading, because it is, because that's the thing. There won't be any kind of truce necessarily. That's going to be very disruptive, or disrupted, with Mars involved here with the North Node. But we also see that the moon is in a trine to the South Node, is in a sextile to the North Node. So the trine is, you don't have to do anything, right? The human soul is seeking opportunities for actual, self-actualization, for outward manifestation. And so in a trine to the South Node, we won't have to do much, which is leading us to the the history, the old history, what's buried under the Sphinx, what do the pyramids really mean? Like something, custodians of spiritual knowledge that came from a different point. If we, Pluto is really making this hard. So, I mean, certainly the south node of the moon allows and gives us momentum to move forward, but it's not where we're headed. We are headed into new ideas, new discoveries, new exploration from a mental perspective, from knowledge. Okay. And so, our yearning for self-actualization can absolutely harmonize, and we can invest that energy into this ability to work within the context of the full range of ideas and knowledge that Gemini does represent, especially in a telepathic situation. Now, it could be literally telepathic. I mean, there's no secrets when you have that, right? When you are able to communicate through telepathy, you can't really hide behind your lies because your energy is what's being read, okay? But this can also reference this part of ourselves internally of discovery by being able to consider the thesis and the antithesis all in one seamless motion. And if we can harness this yearning for self-actualization, we can invest that into where we are collectively going. So I know that's a lot of astrology for this morning, but it's really important because these transits just keep adding up, leading to this full moon. And we can't, it's really important that we don't bypass this. Also, too, Mercury, if you can see here, Mercury is going to create a T-square with the nodes and Mars as well. And so Mercury in Pisces tomorrow will be exact and is going to, be that focal point to help with this opposition that's right here with the nodes and Mars involved as well. And so we will talk about that a lot more tomorrow, but just keep in mind that Mercury in Pisces, again, is very visual, imagination, accessing these mystical realms and being inspired, but it's not, you can't really pin it down. And that's going to be the way that we find the balance point between the opposition of the nodes, where we've been and where we're going. And with Gemini and Sagittarius, this is the realm of knowledge and understanding. Sometimes you can't wrap your mind. Sometimes it doesn't come from those places. Sometimes it really does come from the Akashic records, right? Sometimes it comes from direct connection to the divine source and getting it through inspiration, through our dreams, stuff like that. So I know it's a lot of astrology, but it's important that we are recognizing this today. So let's actually look at the reading for today, okay? And then we will look at each piece. Now, as I will say here, the Queen of Discs has come out. This is going to be our Juno piece that I will talk more about. But the Queen of Discs, right? She represents Sagittarius to Capricorn, right? Where's Juno? 24 degrees Sagittarius. So she's moving into Capricorn soon, right? This Queen of Discs is a queen of her material realm. She is responsible for the security and the safety and the abundant, providing for whoever she's responsible for. This is a mother energy. Now, if you remember, this was here yesterday, same position. Again, we're bringing this into the moment again. We have the Ace of Wands at the heart of the matter. Yep. The roots of the power of fire. We can start feeling there's a strong feeling that we're ready to actualize and create and have sudden illumination, and spiritual hunger is a really big part. Nothing has created yet. This is just the urge, right? The very beginning of Aries, where the Sun and Venus are, right at the heart of things. And you'll see that energetically we have the Buddha prepares. We have the Three of Forces, the bird's nest. This is very, this is about gathering our power. This is about creating a space for something new to grow. This is not about action necessarily. And what we have as an outcome is the truce reversed, right? Four of Swords. This is not, there's no rest or truce or respite mentally with this energy. It will be time to actually move forward mentally, as we see with Mars involved here with the North Node in Gemini. You can really see how that's going to be the case. That there's no respite necessarily. There is sometimes this is forced restriction, but considering everything else around. And maybe it is forced restriction for some people, or isolation, but it definitely is not a well-received respite. It is going to be something that we bump up against, and perhaps there is no mental truce, and there is no rest from the mental fighting, and that we have to embrace that. However, I do feel like that a forced isolation mentally will be upon us with all of this other energy. So let's go through this one piece at a time. I'm going to see if I can move this over here. I really want to. So you can see it. There we go. Yay. You can look at this while we look at each card individually. So here's the Queen of Discs. We talked about this yesterday, right? The mother figure. Here's Juno moving from Sagittarius into Capricorn. She is at, like I said, she's at the point of the total solar eclipse that happened on December 14th. Definitely go back and watch that video. There's some really important information about things in there that are absolutely relevant to this entire eclipse cycle, right? We're not, May and June is the next eclipse cycle. So we're still in this eclipse cycle. She's responsible, right? So there's this feeling within all of us, right? This represents us, right? The Queen, the court cards are actual people. This could be somebody in your life. This could be you. This is us collectively as people. But we are all coming to realize our commitment to those that we are responsible for, to our world, right? To our material world. We are responsible for providing security and nurturance and nourishment. And this queen is taking responsibility for everything that she sees as hers. And again, this is coming into the moment of we are holding this space with some authority here. And we are responsible for our material world, even our tiniest little zone, whatever that is for us. We are responsible for it with the Queen of Discs. And again, this is Juno, commitment, contracts, right? This queen has a responsibility. She doesn't just get to go away from it. And so, I mean, I guess she could, but that's her role, is the queen. She is there to be an authority over the material realm and to provide security and abundance. And so it's important that we remember and we hold true to our commitments to the people in our lives, to the fact that we are here to bring in new earth, whatever that means to us, and that we're responsible for that. And so there is this energy coming into the moment that we do realize. It's very strong. It was here yesterday. Now, the Ace of Wands is a totally different feeling from the Two of Cups. That was about love and harmony and tenderness. Now this is about a strong feeling that is going to turn into will. Right? Spiritual power, hunger, sudden illumination, a wish to create, right? This is a spark going off. And with the moon in Leo, we're really feeling it, especially making trines to the sun, making trines to Chiron. Even in all the harmonious aspects with Mars in Gemini, right? And the North Node, we are feeling this wish to create. This is the spark of transformation is at the heart of all of us today, because we do know what we're responsible for. We feel that, we see it, we take responsibility for it, and now we want to create something. Okay. Again, this is where the Dharma comes in, because the Dharma is just a seamless expression of each of us as we individually are in accordance to natural law. You don't have to try, you just resonate with it. But that means you have to actually get to know yourself so that you know that you're in resonance. Now, where we are at, our conscious awareness, right? Our conscious awareness, our institutional power, our public persona, what we're projecting out as well, because if we're consciously aware of it, then it's something that is being projected out as well. The Buddha prepares. People probably don't like this card because I know to a certain extent we do have to take action on things. And we have this Ace of Wands right here. We're feeling it. We're ready, right? Sudden illumination, spiritual hunger. But in terms of where our mind is, in terms of here's Saturn providing this boundary, and we know it, right? It is about inner preparation. It is about reaching within to find our power and our purpose and our direction. It only comes from within. We cannot discover our Dharma if we are not able to do this. And so this is very much at the top of our awareness today, and is what is giving us institutional power, right? When our public persona is the 10th house and the MC in the astrological chart. So at the top of this, you can see here that we really get a lot. The expression of what we're here to do, which is our Dharma, is going to come through this preparation, this inner preparation, because we're just at the seed point of transformation and creation right now. And really, it's about the inner preparation, okay? The Buddha prepares. Now, at the root of us, one day I'll figure this out. There we go. At the root, energetically, right, in our subconscious, rooting us to that root chakra, to that earth star chakra, right? That sense of, because everything that comes out consciously is through our subconscious, right? That's really the seed point of our manifestation, is through our subconscious. And so where this is really rooted is in a force of creativity and expansion, but you're creating the space for it, right? Subconsciously, where we're rooted is creating the space for it. And we have to build the nest, right? We can't just create something, bring new life into the world without something to hold it. And so we have to build the nest, and there is spiritual expansion that's coming from here. And we want to focus on starting new things and expanding, but at the root of us is to create the space. We can't create something new until there's space to create it or to hold it. There's Pluto, the Lord of Death and Transformation. Saturn, right? Saturn that is in Aquarius, that is you have to find your inspiration when you've let it all go and it's all quiet in your mind. That's when it comes through. But at the root, energetically, this is really about creating the space. We can't create the space for something new until we create the space for something new. We have to actually put our energy into building this nest. And if we want to gather our power, right, as the Buddha prepares, then we have to create a space within us. And as you see, it's his heart. It's his heart. And it's all of their hearts, right? This is where the space is created to transform, is within the heart. Now, this is fascinating, is here our good friend. Where did you go? There we go. Our good friend, sorry, I really want this to work. Okay, I'll get it. Our good friend, the Four of Swords, reversed. So respite, truce when it's upright. Now notice that it is still the same configuration no matter what direction it's facing. So that tells you a lot, that no matter what, this is going to be a shutdown mentally to a certain extent. But when it's reversed, there's resistance to that. There's forced restriction. There's isolation. It's or a cold truce, right? It's kind of you make a truce, but you don't really want to be in that truce. You're just doing it because you have to a certain extent, or no truce whatsoever. But with all of this energy here, with the Buddha and creating the space, right? This is much more about the forced restriction of our mental capacity of taking, and it might be more of an internalized experience too. When these cards are reversed, kind of like when planets are retrograde, we are internalizing that experience. And so we may find this truce within us. We may find that we have the seeds of creation and the sun illumination at the heart here, but with all of this other energy surrounding it, we really have to take a step back and create some respite within us, right? Within us. Again, that mystic rectangle is really going to be very impactful today, especially with the moon in Leo opposite Saturn, right? We are not wanting to follow dad's boundaries. But this is again a forced, I wouldn't say even a forced restriction. Now, the more that I'm channeling this, it feels way more that it's about the internal respite from the mind, giving ourselves a break mentally, and finding balance within ourselves. And this also is going to be a big part of the full moon in Libra as well. Is, we're going to have to find some level of balanced or truce, or being able to take a rest mentally so that we can be available energetically to really let go of what we don't need anymore when that full moon culmination comes. So some guidance here as we work with all of this energy. Okay, the Four of Roses. All right, when it comes to Buddha prepares, now this is we need to really look at our own ego, because this goes back to who we are not, right? Who we are and who we are not. And we need to be very real with ourselves, because this is about connecting with somebody who is like this and disconnecting from them. And so it also, and knowing the difference between self-actualization, healthy ego, and unhealthy ego projection. If you look in this card, this individual doesn't see his attendants in the mirror. They are just characters in his play as far as he's concerned. He only sees himself. And so we have to be real with ourselves so that we know where we are in this whole process. And with the tiger along with it, as we will see here, again, the tiger is very much about providing leadership. Specifically, a good leader knows when to act and knows when to step back and be perceptive, right? A tiger is stalking its prey. It's not always running. It's not always moving towards it. It's, and resting too. But a tiger is also stalking, is also observing, is watching, is waiting. And so being able to balance those things out is really important to leadership. And maybe while some people are reinforcing their ego by not being in tune with who they actually are, but they are much more, this is a very unhealthy expression of the Leo energy, being completely self-absorbed and narcissistic. If real leadership we know when not to be out and to project everything out, right? And we know when to let go of people like this as well. And so these things, and the tiger is showing us how, good leadership is about knowing when to act and knowing when to not act, right? Yin and yang and the interplay. When you have an ego, narcissistic person, there is no interplay. There is only expression of ego. And we have to be able to see these people for who they are, see it within ourselves. And this will really help us, again, take a step back, gather in our power within, so that we are going to be ready to act when the time comes for us to be called forward in a leadership position. Now, when it comes to the Three of Forces, I haven't seen the platypus in a while, but there's two things in particular that really stick out. Number one, it says stop complaining and focus your attention on the blessings in your life. I mean, if you are in a position where you're creating this nest, you have blessings in your life, right? If you are preparing for blessings to come in like a nest, so you're preparing for the growth and expansion of new life, then you don't have room to complain. So if you're struggling with that, if you're like, no, I want things to happen, but you haven't created a container for it, then maybe it's because you keep complaining about stuff and not creating a space for new things to come in. Again, this has to do with the silence, preparing within, cultivating within. If you want to know your Dharma, right? If you want to be able to seamlessly interact with cosmic law, you have to let go of your ego to a certain extent, unhealthy ego, right? The narcissistic part of yourself. And also stop complaining about what isn't and create a space so that it can come in. That's what the law of manifestation is all about. And the other piece, and then the other thing about the platypus is that it's unique. Right? Again, we have to find our unique signature. And if we are struggling with that, again, we want to create a container for that to come in, right? If we don't know what that is, at the very least, we can create something that allows that expansion. But it's really, just about stop running the narrative about what's wrong, what's not working, what you don't have, right? Continuing that victim narrative and focusing on what you do have and really focusing on that gratitude practice. Because when you do that, you actually do expand the container, that nest that allows something new to come in. Now, along with that, the Four of Keys, this is not new to us either. The Four of Keys, clearing the way, right? We have to clear the way, and it's going to take some effort to do this, right? He's got an axe. These are two people who are male and female in terms of how they are gendered in this picture, and showing us that we have to bring these two pieces of ourselves together in order to clear out the debris, clear out the blockages, the obstacles for us to what? Get home, right? To get home. And that's, again, where Juno is sitting at 24 degrees Sagittarius, getting home. That bluebird is perched on the gate of that cottage way up here, right? We have a commitment. We have a responsibility. We have no choice, really. We made a contract. That's our house, and we got to get there. We can't just stand here. And so we have to actually do what we need to do to clear the obstacles out. So stop complaining about it and just do it, because what it's doing is conditioning you. It's getting you, making you stronger, showing you that you have the confidence to clear shit out of your way. And then you get home, and then you get home, and then you get home. So I know that was a long one today, guys, but thank you so much for being here. That is the transmission for today, March 24th, 2021. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. If you're interested in a reading, energy work, to learn your starseed origins, you can book through catalystenergies.net. That is in the description box below. You can email me if you are have any questions or want to reach out and make a connection. Catalyst Energies is on Facebook and on Telegram. This video is also going to be on BitChute and Rumble as soon as I upload it. So all of that is going to be in the description box below. Please consider subscribing to this channel, hitting that like button. If you hit the notification bell, then you know when I go live or when I post any other material. But subscribing and interacting with comments, hitting the like button, all of those things communicate with the AI algorithm that determines what people want to see. So if you find this information helpful, you can do those things in your own way to help spread the message, and that would be appreciated so much. So thank you for being here. I love you guys. I will see you tomorrow for the daily. Have a great day.